Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Memorial Day weekend, a weekend where we get to grill out, we get to be together, celebrate America, and honor the men and women that we have lost in the line of duty in our military, made the ultimate sacrifice, and a weekend where we have the greatest weekend for motorsports racing with the Monaco Grand Prix for breakfast, the Indy 500 for lunch, and NASCAR's longest race, the Coca-Cola 600, a race that has been around for a long, long time. That was originally the World 600, then turned to the Coke 600, and has become a prestigious race for the amount of hours of running 4.5 to 5 hours of racing, side-by-side action, a lot of turns and spins here and there, and last night we got ourselves a slice of Americana, honoring our troops and put on a great race with one driver adding a crown jewel to his trophy case. Let's talk about the craziness of this year's 600. Number one, Denny Hamlin picks up his second win of the 2022 season, picking up his first ever Coca-Cola 600 win in a frantic battle at the end, holding off teammate Kyle Busch for the win, and then Kevin Harvick, Chase Briscoe, and Christopher Bell. Denny Hamlin started out the weekend perfectly, starting on the pole for the race, was running up towards the front, then started to fall back in the middle of the pack for the majority of the race, and kind of stayed quiet where he was there, but we didn't really talk about him a whole lot. But he overcame adversity and put himself in position of those last few restarts in overtime when a lot of guys in front of him wrecked. He took the lead on one of the overtime restarts and took the lead on the final restart. But it was a dogfight with his teammate Kyle Busch, who's looking for his second Coke 600 victory. They would not give each other any inch whatsoever. But Hamlin got the best of Kyle Busch off of turn 2 on the last lap and drove away for his second win of the season and a much-needed win for the 11 team. Morale for this team has been really down as of late. After they had scored their first win of the season in Richmond, where they won on tire strategy, I thought, okay, Denny Hamlin didn't have a good start to the season, but now he's got a win. He's going to get off and rolling now. Well, after that, he kind of hit a brick wall with not a lot of good results. They had speed in the cars. They just didn't have the finishes. But, the couple weeks ago at Kansas, they had a very good race car. They ran up in the top 5 all day long. They finished in the top 5, and his car driver for 2311, Kurt Busch, ended up winning the race. So it was a big weekend for Denny Hamlin. But it was also a big week for him and the team because Chris Gabehart was not at this race. If you remember a few weeks ago at Dover, Denny Hamlin, while battling for the lead for the majority of the race, spun on the front straightaway, and he doored the side of Cody Ware. But on one of the pit stops, he left the pit stall with the tire loose, and that was all in a 4-race suspension, which they took a couple weeks to basically try to appeal. They lost the appeal, so this weekend was one of the first weekends where Denny Hamlin did not have his crew chief, Chris Gabehart. However, the interim crew chief, I can't remember his name, but they did a good job. They stayed together the entire night. They didn't, get at one another. They stayed cool. They stayed calm, cool and collected the entire race. Ran quietly in the top 10 for the majority of the night, then got towards the top 5 as the lap started to wind down, and they were just there at the right place at the right time by dodging all those wrecks on those late race restarts in overtime. And he came out on top, and he has now added a Coke 600 to his trophy case of crown jewels. Remember, he's won 3 Daytona 500s, and I'm pretty sure he's won at least 2 or 3 Southern 500s. So this dude has won so many crown jewels, and now he adds this race to his trophy case. Remember, his best finish at the 600 up until last night was second to Casey Kane in 2012. So a big night for Denny Hamlin, and gets confidence and boost some momentum and morale for the team in this 11 car. So hopefully now that they got their second win, and now they can officially be locked into the playoffs, even with the one win. We've just been getting so many different winners week in and week out. We figured even with the one win, would Hamlin be able to make the playoffs? Now he has with the second win, and now he can pretty much say he's a sure lock for the playoffs, and still do not count out this guy as far as the playoffs go to be a championship contender. Could this be the year, even with the slow start, but now with 2 wins, can this driver, Denny Hamlin, finally win a championship? We've got a ways to go, but for now, breathe easy. He's officially locked in the playoffs with a crown jewel to his trophy case. So big congrats to the 11 team and Denny Hamlin on their win last night. Number 2, drivers that came so close, but no cigar. Kyle Busch, who probably was equal to Denny Hamlin at the start of the race, had a fast race car, led the opening laps, and it looked like he was the guy to beat early on. But then when battling Daniel Suarez for the lead, Suarez in the middle of 1 and 2 slid up and kind of got Kyle Busch arrow loose and sent Kyle Busch around. And he brought the caution, he pitted, he fell a lap down, but got the free pass. and tried to work his way back up to the front. But to be quite honest, it took him a long time to get back up there. And, there were times where he got towards the top 5, but they struggled, I think, when the sun went down. They kind of were around the top 10, top 15, but they, like Denny Hamlin, dodged the big wrecks at the very end. And on the last lap, they were side by side for the lead. Kyle Busch actually led the white flag lap, and it looked like he was going to maybe get his second Coke 600, but Denny Hamlin got the best of him off of turn 2. But nonetheless, a good bounce back for the 18 team after the spin early on. But, other than that, they kind of did struggle in the middle part of the race. But nonetheless, a good bounce back for him. Kevin Harvick. How did this guy finish third? He was junk all night long. I mean, a guy that's won this race 2 times was nowhere to be found in the beginning part of this race. They were as low as 30th. That car was really, really off. And I was kind of surprised because I felt like this was a track that could benefit Harvick as the sun is out, and then the drivers probably aren't the best, but when it cools down and the track picks up some grip, if your car's set up for the nighttime, you're going to start moving your way to the front. Well, Harvick kind of had a long night trying to get up there, but he did get up there courtesy of some guys falling out. But they continued to work on the car, and it still was not a race-winning car. But like the top 2, they dodged all the chaos at the end to get a third place out of it. And if the top 2 did collide on the last lap, we could have been talking about Kevin Harvick getting his first win since the 2020 fall race at Bristol. But a good run for the 4 team, and they needed this because they haven't had a lot of good results as of late. Chase Briscoe, it looked like he was going to win his second career win, second race of the season, this prestigious 600 race. They were a little slow at the beginning, but they worked their way to the front, and by the time the sun was completely down and the nighttime came, he was a strong contender for the win. He was up front a lot, and he looked to be the best of the Fords. And the last laps of the race, he was battling Kyle Larson, who we're going to get to talking about in a little bit. It looked like those two were going to be battling for the win. Briscoe was running down Larson in the closing laps of the race. Then with 2 to go on the inside of 1 and 2, Briscoe gets to the inside, but slides up the track, gets loose, and spins around and backs into the outside wall, bringing out a caution, setting up all the overtime chaos. But despite all that, Briscoe was able to actually fix the car with the composite body, went from a lap down, guys lap back, and ended up getting a 4th place finish. So, all in all, it was a great night for the 14 team. Would they have loved to win? Absolutely. But those two battling at the end, Larson and Briscoe, 2 dirt specialists, hanging it loose, battling side by side, either similar to Briscoe and Reddick a few weeks ago in the Bristol dirt race. It was just great racing all around and a good bounce back for Briscoe. Christopher Bell, he also had an up and down night like a lot of guys did, but he, in all honesty, despite Hamlin's win, he was the best of the Toyotas all night long. He ran up in the top 5, he was up there all night long, but they had some problems. They kept falling laps down because they kept hitting the wall and they cut in tires, fell laps down, got both of them back. He restarted 15th on the last restart and went 5 wide into turn 1 and passed all those guys and got back to get a 5th place finish. Christopher Bell's a wheelman, and he's doing a good job managing his points gap over the cutoff line. Doesn't have a win yet, but if he can get that win, he could be a force to be reckoned with come playoff time with this car, which certainly benefits his driving style. And then Kyle Larson, where do I begin with that dude? Our defending winner of this race had an up and down night, almost similar to riding a roller coaster. They, first of all, didn't get to qualify yesterday because they hit the wall in practice, so therefore they forfeited qualifying to work on the car. They started methodically, worked their way up to the field. Then they had a pit penalty, had to restart the tail end. Then by the time they got to the top 10 in turns 3 and 4, he rear-ended the outside wall, but they still kept going because the composite bodies, they just, hit the wall, it can just flare back out and not affect you whatsoever. But I felt like it was going to damage the toe link in the rear end, which it didn't. But Larson had a crazy night. He spun in the middle of the race as we got close to halfway because he was on worn old tires. And he had to bounce back from that. He had 2 more pit road penalties, mostly pit equipment interference, uncontrolled tires, those types of penalties. He had fire in his pit box, and he looked like he was going to win on that first overtime restart, but running side by side with Austin Dillon, they tangled and got into a wreck off of turn 4 coming to the white, but obviously the caution came out and it set up the final overtime restart. But Kyle Larson, despite all that, was able to bounce back and get a 9th place finish out of it. So it was just a crazy up and down night for him. But at one point through all that, he was leading at the very end. And had Briscoe not spun around, Kyle Larson would have gotten his second 600 and his second win of the season, which would have gotten some confidence because they've also been trying to get some momentum going lately after, pretty rough start to the year despite the win in California. But nonetheless, a good bounce back for Kyle Larson despite, coming up short of another 600 victory. But nonetheless, all those guys, despite coming up short, had a solid night with all the circumstances that they dealt with. Number 3, stage winners. Strong, but not the finishes that they got. Let's talk about them. Chase Elliott in stage 1 looked to be in the middle of the top 10. Then by the time we got to the end of stage 1, he took the lead and looked to be driving away and actually clinched stage 1 and a bonus point. And he looked to be the best car early on. I mean, the last couple years, he's had a car capable of winning the Coke 600, finished the 4th in 2019 and 2nd the previous 2 seasons. Last night, he was really strong, and even as the sun went down, he was really, really strong. But when battling Daniel Suarez for 2nd place with a couple laps left in stage 2, Elliott got a little loose in 1 and 2 and slid up and actually hit the rear end into the outside wall and spun around, bringing out the caution. They came to pit road, changed the tires, and they discovered that the toe link was damaged, so they tried to fix it, but they did not meet the minimum speed because they took too long with the damaged vehicle policy clock, and therefore Chase Elliott had to park it and settle for a 33rd place finish, which sucks because he had a good car, and it looked like had that incident did not happen, he could have been a contender for the win. Daniel Suarez, who was also strong on the early going of the race in stage 1, battling Kyle Busch for the lead. All of a sudden, as the laps wound down in stage 1, he fell back to 26th. The car looked like it had a tire going down or it just wasn't handling well. But they got the handling right, and by stage 2, they were working their way back to the front, and they captured stage 2, and it looked like he was going to have his night. Unfortunately, late in the race, with about 50-plus laps to go, he was battling Briscoe for position off of turn 4, tried to clear Briscoe, but didn't, and he got tapped and got spun around and collected Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton, and Chris Buescher. We'll talk about that incident in a little bit, but therefore, unfortunately, Suarez took out of the Coke 600 because of that incident, which sucks because he was very fast all night long. And then Ross Chastain, who arguably, I mean, we talked about Chase was strong, Suarez was strong. Chastain was the best car last night. He was dominant. They led the most laps at 55 laps. He won stage 3. Looked like he was going to be the guy to win the race. But then by the time of the end of the final stage, they fell off a little bit. They tried to put themselves in position on one of those late race restarts in overtime, but they were caught up in one of that first overtime crash, and they had to restart in the final overtime restart on the outside with the damaged front end, which hurt the aero, and he had to fall back and settle for a 15th place finish. But the Trackhouse cars, very strong night by all those guys, despite not getting the results that they'd hoped for, but they were contenders all night long. And a big weekend, obviously, for Trackhouse, with announcing the project of Project 91, a third car that will run at Watkins Glen later this year, with Formula One superstar Kimi Räikkönen behind the wheel. That's going to be a lot of fun. But those stage winners were strong last night. They just didn't get the results that they were hoping for. Number 4, chaos. So much chaos. So much chaos. So many wrecks. So many guys spinning out early in the race. We had Chris Buescher, Noah Gragson, and Ryan Preece bring out the first caution when they tangled. We had Josh Bilecki. We had Kyle Busch. We had Kyle Larson. We had Chase Elliott. We had Bubba Wallace spinning. And then in the closing laps of stage 2, on the restart, literally not even half a lap into that restart towards the end of stage 2, Ryan Blaney gets loose in 1 and 2 and spins around and collects multiple cars behind him, and William Byron, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, even Denny Hamlin was caught up in that incident. I forgot to mention, but he was the one that sustained the least amount of damage compared to all those other guys. But unfortunately, it took out a lot of good cars like Blaney and Byron and Kurt Busch, who was coming off the win a few weeks ago at Kansas. And then we get to stage 4. In the middle of the race, I mentioned Suarez wrecked off of turn 4, collecting Todd Gilliland and Harrison Burton, and also collected Chris Buescher, who was rebounding from a wreck early in the race. He got into the grass, and the tire on the right front came loose, and he bounced and started tumbling upside down the front straightaway, and the car came to rest on its roof, but he dropped the window net and showed the sign to the safety crews and the fans that he was okay, and it took the AMR safety team and the safety crew workers quite a while to flip the car back up properly, and they took their time. They did a really good job of it, and I commend those crew workers for taking their time to turn the car back over properly and slowly so not as to rush it and possibly hurt Chris Buescher. He was fine physically, mentally. He was kind of upset because they had a good bounce back from where they were early on, and they had a good race car. And then, of course, the overtime restart, the first one, battling for the lead, coming to the white flag, Austin Dillon on 4 fresh tires versus some guys on 2 tires, takes it to the inside in turns 3 and 4, and looked like coming off of 4, he was going to probably take the lead away and go win his second Coke 600, but there were 4 wide off of 4, and then Larson and Dillon tangled, and they also collected Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and Martin Truex Jr. There was just so much chaos last night. 18 cautions in total. I mean, this reminded me so much of the 600 we had 3 years ago in 2019, where that race was really competitive with the 550 package, even though that package kind of had its ups and downs. That was a good 600 in all honesty. This race was just full of chaos and guys out of control, so many cautions, and it definitely made this race so long. It's like almost 5.5 hours last night. I didn't even go to bed until 12:15. That's how late this thing was with all these cautions and everything. It's just an absolute chaotic night last night with all these guys back and forth. It was crazy. It was wild. It was just unbelievable. But thankfully, everybody was okay from those wrecks. But unfortunately, a lot of those wrecks took out a lot of guys that had a good shot at winning that race. And number 5, the racing product for the Coca-Cola 600. What can I say about this next-gen car with 1.5 mile and intermediate tracks? It saved these races. It saved these tracks. This car provided some of the best Coke 600 racing I've seen in a long time. Yes, I mentioned the 2019 race that we had 3 years ago. That was a good race. But this race with these guys, a little more horsepower and putting the control back in the hands of the drivers. You know, these guys slipping and sliding everywhere. Tires wearing out, a lot of tires burning out last night. It was an unbelievable race. So much action. So much side-by-side racing, good racing all around. You could definitely pass with this car. There was not really one dominant guy last night. There was a lot of guys that had a good chance of winning that race. And side-by-side action for the lead, in the middle of the pack, it was just great all around. And as I mentioned, these cautions, this great racing, kind of reminds me a whole lot of the 2005 Coca-Cola 600, where that race holds the record for the most cautions in a single cup event at 22, where we had so much good racing all around with different guys, comers and goers, all night long. Definitely a lot of cautions, but still, it was a fun race. And of course, capped off by the Jimmie Johnson Bobby Labonte photo finish for the win, with Jimmie Johnson ended up getting the best of Bobby Labonte. But last night was eerily similar to that, with a nice finish at the end, good racing all night long, and all these cautions. It was one of the most memorable Coke 600s. And over the years, the Coke 600 seemed to maybe have lost its touch from where it used to be many years ago, because 2011 was another solid race with another dramatic finish. 2014 was solid. 2013 was pretty good. 2012 was okay. 2015 was meh. 2016 was Truex dominated. 2017 had a fuel mileage victory by Austin Dillon. 2018 was dominated by Kyle Busch. 2019, as I mentioned a few years ago, different leaders all night, fun race. 2020 was just meh. Last year was an average race, dominated mostly by Hendrick cars. This year, this was the best Coke 600 I've ever seen. This was a fun race. It was a blast. A sold-out crowd. They got their money's worth with this, and the soldiers that got to be in attendance for this, I hope they enjoyed this race on a weekend where we pay homage to the men and women that we've lost in the line of duty in our military, but we will never, ever forget them, and we will always remember them. It was a fun weekend, and it was a great race for the Coca-Cola 600 this year. So applaud NASCAR with this next-gen car. It saved intermediate and 1.5 mile tracks. It was a great 600 last night. And it was a really good weekend, obviously, to honor the men and women of the military. Obviously, today is officially Memorial Day, and I honor the men and women of our military that are currently serving, and those that we have lost. We will never forget you, and we honor you, and we deeply thank you for allowing us to pay the ultimate sacrifice to allow us to have our freedom. We can't thank you enough. And it was a really fun night again, even in the broadcast booth with Mike Joy, Clint Boyer, and Jamie McMurray. And today's actually Clint Boyer's birthday, so happy birthday, Boyer. It was a great race all around. You know, the drivers with the patriotic paint schemes, the banners of honoring those men and women that we have lost the recent year in the military. It was just a good weekend all around. You know, started off again with the Monaco Grand Prix. Sergio Perez won the Monaco Grand Prix. That was, you know, shortened due to rain and a couple of incidents on the track, but Sergio gets his first Monaco GP win. And the Indy 500 sold out crowd for the first time since 2019, with Roger Penske owning IndyCar in the track. Marcus Ericsson wins his first Indy 500, his third career IndyCar win, capitalizing on teammate Scott Dixon, who dominated all day. He got caught for speeding on the last pit stop. That was a fun race. Jimmie Johnson participated in the event for the first time. He led a lap under green flag stops, but was never really a contender, and he crashed out late, which set up the stoppage of the race and letting them have a 2-lap shootout, which I want to applaud IndyCar, by the way, for letting the fans get a 2-lap shootout to at least see a battle for the win. A good race there, but the Coke 600 stole both of those races yesterday. It was a great event, and I had a blast watching it. It was a lot of fun, and just a great night. And the next gens also, I think, brought back the glory and the majesty that is this crown jewel in the 600. So great job once again by NASCAR. So with that being said, Memorial Day weekend's now officially in the books. The 600 is officially done. Next weekend, we're off to the Midwest. For the first time in NASCAR Cup Series history, they make their trip to Worldwide Technology Raceway, or Gateway Motorsports Park, or whatever you want to call it. A track that has played host to Xfinity Series and Truck Series races in the past, and of course the recent years IndyCar. Well, this weekend, for the first time ever, the Cup Series will make their first trip to St. Louis, Missouri, or Madison, Illinois. It's pretty much in the St. Louis market anyways. In that area, we will make our first trip there for the Enjoy Illinois 300, and I'm very excited about this race. And it's a 1.25 mile track, and 1/4 mile track, and I'm looking forward to this car and what it's going to produce on this track. We're going to have Michael Waltrip in the booth, which should be a lot of fun. It's going to be fun hearing him and Clint Boyer, joke around a lot and, provide good commentary for this race. I'm excited about what we're going to see at Gateway. So the big question is, can Denny Hamlin carry momentum off this big win of the 600 to Gateway? Will we see a new first-time winner this season? Or are we going to have another repeat winner possibly, like Hamlin get his third win, Chastain get his third win, William Byron get his third win, or maybe somebody that already has a win this year get their second win of the season? Can't wait to see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. So hope you all enjoyed the Memorial Day weekend and the greatest day in racing yesterday with the Monaco GP, the Indy 500, and the Coke 600. It was a blast to watch. Subscribe, like. Congratulations to Denny Hamlin and the 11 team on winning the 600. And everybody out there, have a happy Memorial Day. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go racing!